Your Royal Highness, Prime Ministers, Excellencies, friends of the Baltic Sea region. I have to admit, after looking in the audience, it's kind of hard to keep it informal, but I will try. It's an early morning on a Monday. Now, ever since economists have tried to understand why there are so big differences in prosperity across countries, they were really fascinated with the issue of growth. Our track record really hasn't been great in finding out what needs to be done and giving actionable advice to politicians. But there is one insight that really came in the last few years that I think is very relevant for our discussions today. When economists looked at growth, they found out that a lot of countries actually have been able to grow quite quickly. Hundreds of countries have been able to have periods of high growth. But what they also found is there were only very few countries, very few regions that were able to sustain growth over entire periods of time. And that is what you need if you want to make a country or region very prosperous. You have to sustain growth over long periods of time. Now, looking at that finding, we find ourselves in this global crisis at a very crucial moment for the Baltic Sea region. This region, of course, has an old history, but it's also a new region. A young region that just is 20 years after the rebirth, after the fall of the Berlin Wall that we're celebrating this year. The question is, are we going to be like a comet, very nice, you see it, the light is on, but then it disappears again in the gray? Or are we going more to be like the North Star, a fixture on the global scene of high growth? The jury is still out. We'll have to do our work today and in the years to come. To work forward. Now, if you look at what we can learn from other countries, other regions that have been able to really sustain growth over long periods of time, I think there are two things that are really crucial that I at least have learned from looking at these cases. One is that there needs to be a real focus on the right levels of what are the sources of prosperity. It's not political power. It's not natural resources. It's not size per se. It's really the ingenuity of productivity, of innovation, of companies that create products and services that other people want to buy. You want to have to succeed on global markets if you really want to be able to create prosperity over long periods of time. There's a very strong focus on that notion in countries that have been able to grow for a long period of time. But then there is a second observation, and that is pragmatism. Countries that have been successful have not been ideological. They have tried to look at the facts, and they have tried to use policy tools in line with what they saw as the realities of their economy. So not higher or lower taxes, because that's what we always say. Not privatization or more government control, because that's what we always say. But finding the right solutions because of an analysis of where we stand today with a view on where we want to go in terms of higher prosperity.